The numbers are there.
Has Lewis been there? Well, we'll do. Not happy to understand those quite cold. Anyhow,
Yeah, that's on. Open, and he's gonna read how
following a closed meeting for evaluation of the performance of a City of Pelican Rapids employee, Mr. Travis McLeod, under Minnesota Statute Section 13D.05 Subdivision 3, Clause 8. The City of Pelican Rapids City Council meeting is now open. The time is 6:33 p.m. Do I hear any motions from the City Council at this time?
I'll move that we remove Mr. McLeod from city employment effective February 24th.
A second.
We have a motion in
Yeah.
second.
Mr. Mayor, if I make can we clarify what the exact motion should
Yeah,
be? Here's what I recommend is that I read a precise motion, and then whoever just made that motion can say, yeah, that's the exact motion I'd like to make. So, Mr. Mayor, if you'd like me to, I can.
Yes, please do that.
Members of the council, I recommend the specific motion be as follows. 1, that Travis McLeod be removed from employment with the City of Pelican Rapids effective February 24th, 2021, which will be his last date of employment with the city for non-disciplinary reasons, as specified in City Administrator Don Solga's letter to Travis McLeod of February 11th, 2021. 2, that City Administration provide Travis McLeod with any appropriate notices related to this decision.
Is that how you like it?
Agree, second.
Okay. Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? 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 Hearing none, we'll have a roll call vote. Danielle?
Councilmember Strand,
Aye.
Councilmember Ballard,
Nay.
Councilmember Markgraf,
Nay.
Councilmember Foster,
Aye.
Mayor Frazier.
Aye. Motion passed. We will now move on to our next agenda item. Let's go to item number 11, Planning Commission report, and Councilman Ballard.
So we had a meeting last night, and I was asked by the Planning Commission to ask the council if the council would be interested in changing 905.05 subdivision 8 of our building code, which pertains to pool buildings and steel siding within the city limits. And it's kind of, we have a meeting scheduled for the March 1st. If the council is interested in looking at that. If the council is not interested in looking at that, we will cancel the meeting. And we currently have people within the city that are looking at building a post type construction auxiliary building within the city limits.
So when you say if we are interested, I mean, that doesn't say we approve it, but just to let them move forward, get the yeas and nays.
If you're interested in possibly changing that, then the Planning Commission will go forward on the 1st with trying to clean up some of the language or presenting a different
Because then we would be able to make a determination later as to
Whether it's
not
acceptable.
just corrugated rusty tin, it has to be architectural, whatever,
Yeah, it's,
that kind of stuff.
yeah. Again, it's just, then we would go through that whole process of changing the code where this planning commission would work on it, could get, probably get it cleaned up by the city attorney, would get presented to the council would
You know, it's,
make additions, subtractions.
my opinion is probably it's time to look at it with the popularity of all those type of buildings and shop homes and, you know, and it's,
But they're saying if we aren't interested at all, we don't want to waste their time.
And we don't want to waste our time. Correct. If you're not interested in looking at it, we will not have our meeting on March
Yeah,
1st.
Councilman Stratton, good question.
I'm trying to shift gears here. So, are we talking, like, there's something wrong with the pole thing, you know, like, it's a bad name, you know, but are we talking about just outbuildings then? Or what?
This is specifically 905.05 subdivision 8. Letters A, B, and E
Yeah.
all deal with auxiliary buildings, not main
Okay.
housing.
And so, are they asking for a different kind of siding, or?
Well, that
Because that's cheap.
that subdivision of the code talks about post frame or pole frame buildings. The foundation's required, the siding,
right.
but they're, I guess, outbuildings or auxiliary
Yeah,
buildings,
yeah,
not
yeah.
the primary building.
Lester and Morton buildings.
905.05, subdivision 8, letters A, B, and E.
Kevin, what is the heading of that code? Is that pole building specific, pole construction, or is it residential requirements, or what is it? What's the heading on it?
I didn't write that down. I just wrote it down.
The reason I ask that
I mean, I
is
can-
because there are the minimum, and just for you guys' sake, there's the residential requirements, but then there's another section dealing with just pole buildings. So don't go into it thinking you can just make the changes in one section of the code. There may be other sections that you're going to have to deal with also.
Subdivision 8 is residential construction requirements.
Okay, because there's another section that specifically talks about pole construction. So you're going to have to look at that.
Where's that?
It's in chapter 9 someplace, specifically about pole construction.
Because
So you're going to have to talk about
So
that.
the pole construction, is that defined as just the structure, not the,
It's 901.09.
it's not the finish, it's just the poles? Then you can put-
901?
901.09.
Does that tell you how to do with poles, or what?
It's one paragraph.
Ah, go Daniel.
It starts out, pole construction buildings shall not be permitted in a residential district.
Okay, I need somebody to answer my question. What's the definition of a pole? It's just the poles, then you can put wood on it, metal, anything?
And I think that, I have my own opinions of, I think that's the sticking point where language needs to be cleared up, because Morton Buildings currently has a new process of drilling the hole, putting the concrete
Footing.
pier basically in that hole, and then attaching the post, which is and that's where I think we need to define, what's a pole, what's a post? Post, I have come to figure out, is a square. Thing is the same as a pole, it's just square. The square post is attached to the pier, or pylon, or whatever you want to call it.
Piling.
And then it's constructed the same way a pole barn shed would be
Or a
constructed.
house or anything else.
With the exception, with
Exception?
The exception is that a pole barn, a post-construction shed that isn't going to be a residence, per our code, any auxiliary building has to have a foundation, full perimeter, not, whereas this construction, there would just be piers or pylons, and then there would be, if it's not a cement floor, which the issue we're dealing with is not going to have a concrete floor. If it's a dirt floor, there's no additional concrete, so it's just, it will be a pole barn, but it's a post barn, and it will, so that's why we were asking if we wanted to look
Isn't
at
our
it.
main concern the appearance of the building?
Well, you wouldn't see any of that,
Yeah,
once the siding's on.
Yeah, you drive by, it's a regular building, it probably has a steel roof, right?
The steel roof, steel siding, vertical steel siding, which per our code is not allowed because
In
it
the
needs to be,
residential zone.
in a residential zone, needs to be horizontal siding.
And just so I can, what's on my mind is, it's going to be very hard for you to allow it in some places, but not in other places. If you allow, in my opinion, and you can do whatever you want to do, but if you allow vertical
Siding,
siding,
steel siding.
steel siding like you see on agricultural style buildings, if you allow them in the residential zone, every house that Roger Shaleski owns will have it on it. Is that the look you want?
Well, I don't think that applies to the post or pole thing, though. We could still add architectural steel, you know, non-vertical, whatever.
So,
I think that's important.
But that's where that residential requirement comes in and is very important.
my topic, or my mission tonight wasn't to enter this discussion, it was to see whether or not
Okay.
you wanted to go down that road and look at changing that code. If you're not,
It's,
I am.
make an
I love
email.
the steel buildings. I
it
love them.
sounds like.
Oh, they're the-
Love them.
Yeah,
They're cheaper, they're durable, they're zero maintenance. I love them. I'm willing to go down that road.
and we're just, when you mentioned that situation, but we're just talking about outbuildings, right?
No, because he's talking about they're talking, and I'm just saying, take into account, they're talking about the residential construction requirements in the residential zone. So they're going to be talking about changing the no vertical steel in the residential. So if you change it to vertical, fine, but try and figure out a way to do it so that there aren't any adverse effects of it.
I think it needs to be, would have to be
and
architecturally, whatever steel, not corrugated silver tin
Yeah, okay,
on the
we're-
sidings of places.
we're just putting the cart way before the horse.
yeah,
I mean, so,
necessarily.
yes or no, we want to talk about this or not, and that'll be a mission.
Yeah. It sounds like there's plenty of discussion here, so.
And it can be put horizontal. They're not put-
Yeah.
That's neither here nor there. I just needed to get information if, yes, we want.
Are they looking for a motion?
Nope,
on that?
just if,
Okay. Consensus?
Go ahead and start wasting your time.
look at it.
Steve, you okay with that?
Well, I don't think you're gonna want to have vertical steel in some of the residential areas.
We shouldn't have to.
And again, that's
But that's down the road.
yep. And I think if we put this in the context of auxiliary buildings, outbuildings, sheds, garages, and we'll leave the primary residence home, which has to be the first building on the lot anyway, as is, but that's,
So you can have a pole outbuilding, and then you can have vinyl siding or whatever.
down the road, yeah.
What about shelf space? You're not talking about that.
We're not talking about that.
That's next.
Okay, anything more you want to talk about?
We lose people because of that.
Oh, yes. And they are so much more affordable
Okay, let's move on.
and look good.
Yeah,
Item number 8,
it's not even down,
City
huh?
Administrator Report.
All right, since the last department head meeting, and
Wanted was a yes or no?
anyway, when we talked about the last department head meeting, I'm just gonna give a little bit of detail because I think we didn't have all the department heads there, but we talked about, really, some of the conversations I've had at one of the webinars with the coalition. I pointed to that because that's the attorneys that are at the coalition, but it relates to, just this continuing, making sure that our employees are wearing masks and following the mandates and everything else. And what happens now if somebody does report to their supervisor, or their department head, that they've been exposed to COVID. You know, so them are the discussions we're having, because the city really could potentially become liable for work comp, or whatever happens to an employee if it can be shown that they were exposed or potentially exposed at the job. So, it was a good conversation. We'll probably do it again because we missed a couple key department heads. Work with the city clerk to set the agenda, and obviously the technology component of this is really taking on a additional time with this one, especially learning how to do waiting rooms so we can put people in, get them out of them and everything else. I had a virtual meeting with MnDOT Aeronautics. They hired a consultant to review airport information, and so I had a guy that had a virtual meeting with that wanted information on our airport, more just our airport layout plan, our master plan, that type of thing. And he just had a few questions. I sent him some information for something that MnDOT's doing for all the airports to try and get an idea of the demand for money towards developments at airports and that type of thing. I don't know if you've noticed or not, but I've overhauled the city website. Looks dramatically different. And there's still work that we're doing on that, but for the most part, the layout is what it will be. You guys had approved many meetings ago the idea of us spending a little bit of money and updating the website so that what the photos you see on the website is actually photos of Pelican. You know, if you remember the old website, it had a family in a park-like situation.
Whoever they were.
Whatever, and they were nowhere from Pelican. The picture wasn't even from Pelican. So we're still moving down that road, but with the new website, one of the things that I did was, I just looked at something that was really neutral, and you'll see it's a lake with the front end of a canoe going down on a lake, so it's more our area anyway. So we will be looking at going to the next level that is going to be more getting photos on the website that pertain to Pelican, pictures of Pelican. Also, some of the things that we'll be talking about or looking at is the ability to pay bills online as opposed to running credit cards and that type of thing too, to make it more user-friendly for staff and the general public. I did attend a 2024 virtual advisory meeting for the 2024 project. There's another one on, I believe, it's the 11th of March. And then at the end of March meeting, MnDOT will be coming back to the city council to share the update to the options that they've been working on, to keep the city council informed about that stuff. So on March 23rd, if anybody's interested in attending that meeting, you can send you guys the links, or you can come up. I usually basically host it. We have it up here too on the big board here. So we might just do what we did last time and post it as potential quorum of the city council in case some of you guys can make it.
They're coming in person?
No, there is virtual meetings, but they do it every second Thursday of the month.
Okay.
So obviously working on this police department personnel issue, which isn't a good thing for any of us to work on. It's unfortunate. And preparing for the closed meeting, the logistics of all of this. I've been talking with a couple of different people regarding potential economic development projects, and hopefully we can kind of push them further on through to where we start talking about them at the council level, because things are going to happen. I had a short conversation with MMB regarding the jurisdictional determination. And sorry to say, but also maybe glad to say, we're kind of moving down the road that you talked about the last meeting with what you'd like to see with the two boards. But when I reached out to MMB again about where are we at with this, what is your legal department within pay equity, where are they at with this? Her reply was, because of what the city is trying to look to accomplish or figure out, this issue is beyond our legal department. You have to get a hold of, and they gave me the contact name of the person at the Bureau of Mediation Services. So I talked to that individual, and they said, basically, just send me a letter stating real simply what you're looking to do. And then they will take it and I'll look at it and decide how they want to do it. But when I talked to her on the phone, what I just briefly described her, and she really didn't want to give too much because they want to just get the letter first, but I explained to her, it seems where our problem is the Minnesota state has rules pertaining to libraries, or statutes pertaining to the library and library boards and establishment of, and what they have the authority to do. And I said, where we seem to be struggling is, those rules say one thing, but the interpretation as it relates to the city and as it relates to the authority of the library seems to be at a difference, because we just don't understand how those rules allow an appointed board to deviate from policy for city employees established by the city council if them are city employees. So basically what my request was to make a determination on who's the public employer, in a sense. And then, as it relates to interpretation of the rule. So I typed the letter up, had the mayor sign the letter, and I emailed it to this person down at the Bureau of Mediation Services. So I sent her an email, is this fine this way, or do you also need it mailed to you in snail mail? I'm waiting to hear back from her, but that's what she asked me to do. So I know we want to get this resolved, so I just had the mayor sign the letter and send it to her. I'll keep you posted. Also reviewed the fire department annual report and billings to the township, and then we got them sent off. We aren't having an annual meeting this year, obviously for COVID reasons and social distancing and all that type of thing, so that's been mailed out. And then also I talked to Design Intent regarding the pool about getting a proposal. I know you guys approved, let's move forward with plans and specs and the development of, and I wanted them to basically get a proposal together so that the council can actually look at a proposal and the potential costs involved, and given the approval on the proposal to start developing the plan of the pool. That's my report.
Any questions for Administrator Soga?
Yes.
Thank you.
I did.
Item number 9, Mayor's report on a few items I've been involved with. February 10th, I was at a virtual meeting entitled Children First. There was 100 community leaders within the Red River Valley, and also former Minnesota Supreme Court Justice Alan Page and Chair of the Federal Reserve Bank of Minneapolis. Had a proposed amendment to the Minnesota Constitution for all children to have access to a quality education. And I'm not exactly sure where this is all going, but the amendment or the proposal stems from our inception of our state constitution, and nothing has been changed yet, and some people feel that all children do not have access to a quality education. That's all I can tell you at this point. Attended a Watertown County Tourism meeting via Zoom, which Don talked about. Attended a 2024 Complete Streets Committee meeting on Microsoft. I did meet with People Service representatives, Terry and Dennis, at our wastewater plant. Talked about daily operations of the water plant, wastewater plant, lagoon, and so forth. Continue to meet with new business owners within a community. I was appointed to a legislative salary council for the state of Minnesota, and we've had a couple meetings when our job is to set the salaries for for legislatures and employees within the state of Minnesota. And at this point, I cannot have contact with our state senator or any state representatives till after the 1st of April, when we come to a conclusion what their new salaries will be. So if anything, any questions come to me, I have to relay it to Don, so and Don will get it to you, but I cannot have contact with them because of the open meeting law. Attended a League of Minnesota's Elected Leaders Institute session, 1 noon hour, talking about housing in Minnesota and the lack thereof. I did send an email to the Pelican Rapids Library Board Chairman requesting that after the Library Board's recommendation for a hire to the library, then a formal letter be sent for approval to the Pelican Rapids City Council, and we talked about that at our last City Council meeting. Attended a Local Foods, Local Places Zoom meeting last week. Also, League of Minnesota, Coalition of Greater Minnesota's webinar this week, and then met with Administrator Soda to review the agenda for this evening's council meeting. Any questions?
Thank you.
Thank you. Seeing no other items.
I move.
All in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. All the same? Meeting adjourned.
Oh, my.
That's so high I can't reach it with my driver's license.
But isn't it miserable? You can't reach them with a scraper.
Live it run. That's what I would do.
Yes,
Mine shuts off after 10 minutes. What a piece of junk.
You leave it run?